Okay.
That's, that's a
All
good
right.
question, though, I
Yeah.
think, because, if we go back to the origin of the tarot, and it was all in the mystery schools, right? It was all underground and uh,
Yes.
a lot of oral too, probably, or codes and stuff like that. Catherine's shaking her head. So, what is true, but it's all coming somewhere from the collective unconscious.
Yes.
So
That's
that's a
right.
good question. I never would have thought of that. I always just take it as, well, there, that's what he said.
But I think it's just, yeah, I agree with all that. It's also, I think we can never minimize anything down to one definition. It's just like with dreams. I always tell people, avoid the dream dictionaries because chances are you're going to get a very boiled down
Yeah.
idea of what the symbol might mean. They're so expansive. And I think that's one of the things about this book that I particularly like is that he does allow for that expansion and like look at this and look at how it shows up in this culture and look how it shows up in this story, so that we can pick and choose what works for us. So
We can also begin to see the universality. That's the other thing that his book does. You get the sense of a universality.
yeah, yeah.
So
What is
we're
the
gonna,
author's name again?
It's a very hard name to pronounce. It's I'm not sure if it's Hajo or Haho, Hajo, and then it's probably I'm not sure which culture he's from.
It's Hayo. It's a German
Banza.
name.
Is it? Is it a German name?
Well, the first name is, what is it, Bansnad?
Banza? Banza or something?
Banzai.
B-A-N-Z,
I don't know.
Bansnad.
I'll look at his biography later. So let's looks like a lot more people showed up. So Patti, you want to go through the order and ask people to introduce themselves? And usually what we like to say is please tell us your name and where you're calling in from. And then give us one word that you think of when you think of the archetype of the tower.
okay. That's
Go ahead.
and that's Billie over there. Billie Ortiz. Billie Cheryl, as I call her.
I'm in Boulder County, and she calls me Billie Cheryl because she doesn't. There was somebody in her life that was named Billie. She likes to differentiate it. So
Yeah, it's our joke, but she won't let me call her an expert. So I think of her as a dream expert, but we have this thing about experts because Jeremy didn't like it either. So anyway, thanks Billie, Cheryl, for putting this together. You worked really hard at making this happen, and I love being able to be here with everybody today. I'm Patti Ashley. I'm a therapist here in Boulder, Colorado, and my word for the tower is liberation.
that's a good one.
Yeah. All right, and so we'll go this way on my screen to Catherine.
Okay, Catherine Woods, up here in Fort Collins, Colorado. Longtime lover of you people, locally an astrologer, although I no longer do readings, and a longtime studier of the tarot. So for this particular card, I'm sorry, I can't do one word, but here's my phrase: structural collapse, which allows for an opening for new possibilities.
Ooh, nicely said. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Andrew?
Hey everybody, nice to see you all. I'm Andrew, dream expert. I'm drawing a blank on this. I guess New World. I mean, that's kind of like my default. Like, what are you doing with your life? I'm writing a book or I'm doing research. I don't really know what I just New World, I guess.
Andrew, are you in Boulder?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you tell
thanks.
from my general demeanor?
Oh, no.
There's just something about you that's
No, I can't tell where people are from, actually. They have to tell me.
Well, thanks, Andrew.
I'm from Eastern Europe. I'm glad to be dreaming. It's been too long.
I can't see your name, and
Denise.
Denise.
Yeah.
Not Mark, but Denise.
Oh, Denise.
Your last.
I'm Denise. Denise lives outside of Washington, D.C.
longtime dreamer, dream worker, worked with Jeremy for many years, semi-retired chiropractor, been interested in the tarot for 30 years, don't do much with it. My one word for the tower, I think, would be disruption.
Mm. Good one too.
Okay. Ingrid?
Oh, hi. I'm Ingrid. I live here in Boulder. I don't have a lot of experience with tarot, but I'm really interested in, I was telling Billie a little earlier, I'm really interested in stories, archetypes, dreams. I studied literature in college and just love that. Love interpretation and all of that creativity. The one word I think I would use to describe the tower would be shake up.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thanks. Judy?
Oh, okay. I'm Judy. I'm from Spokane, Washington. I am a hypnotherapist, and I've loved the tarot for years. If I were to, it's hard to pick one word. I want two words. It would be like abrupt change.
Yeah. That's very good.
That works. Christine?
Hi, I'm Christine Ruth. I'm like Patti, who is my office colleague, marriage and family therapist from Boulder. And I know nothing about the tarot. This is just my second class with Billie because I grew up in a fundamentalist home where that was naughty. You couldn't talk about it. And so I'm breaking out of my naughtiness. And so here's my phrase that I stole from this book because I love it. It says, the collapse of our old familiar misery.
Yeah.
And I love that phrase. I'm like, the old familiar misery. Oh my gosh, I love that. So anyway, that's my little phrase for the tower. Glad to be here.
That's a very good part that you picked out, Christine, because I'll talk more about that later. That's very good.
I actually thought up some words now. Pointlessly arguing with people from my past to avoid the present.
Okay.
Worse than that, but I couldn't say it better.
That's funny. All right, and we have Teresa.
Hi. So I'm Teresa, and it's good to see some familiar faces. I live and work in Fort Collins, Colorado. One identity I would give myself is a longtime dreamer, dreaming since I was young, and absolutely have loved the work I've been honored to do with Billie and others to awaken them. My first tarot card reading was in 1989, and it was done in Los Altos, California, where I used to live. Fundamental life-changing experience, and it gave me a chance to tap into my own wisdom that the cards revealed. And I've continued to have tarot card readings through the years. I probably have about 45 decks, and I use them like some people use the Bible. I will go to a deck, put it on my heart. I don't know how to read them, but I'll put it on my heart, and I will see what card speaks to me that day or for that moment. The word I would use for the tower card is polarity. So that allows me to have two words, transformation and permanence.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
For a minute, I'm going to be looking at my phone because somebody lost their code. So I'm going to try to send them the thing. So please continue and I'll just listen.
Okay. Thanks, Teresa. We have, I don't know your name next to Teresa. Yes.
Margaret, it's you.
Okay, see, I can't tell to whom you're speaking. And I don't have the same order you have. I'm looking.
Your name says Butler on the screen.
That's right. I'm Margaret. I'm Margaret Butler.
Okay.
And I live in Hendersonville, North Carolina. I'm a longtime dreamer, and for the last about 15 years have been working with dreams. I'm a graduate of the Hayden Institute's Dream Worker program. I've been recording my dreams for years. I'm an English major, a happy English major. I love imagery and metaphor and words, because words mean something. My word for the tower, when I have no experience with the tarot, not a bit of experience with it, though I own 2 books, which I hastily looked through in the last week. And I've seen decks of tarot cards, but I've never used one. I found this fascinating, and I wanted to be part of this because I'm a lifelong student. And if I'm doing something with a group of people, I'm obligated, self-obligated to participate. So this means I get to learn and to internalize these things. So my word for the tower is 2 of them. It's disintegration and integration. Okay, on that continuum.
Great. Well, thanks for being with us. We have a lot of new tarot people. This is fun, Billie. We'll have to speak more about what it is.
Sure.
Okay. And next is, I forgot your name and I'm so sorry. Next to Margaret.
Okay.
CK.
CK.
Okay. Hi,
CK.
all. I'm going by CK, and my dog is, bless him, he's freaking out because I started talking. My name is also Christine, and there's a lot of similarity to your experience, Christine Ruth. While I come from a family and a background that would never have accepted tarot, as an adult, I've been using it as a tool to access parts of my subconscious that I don't always, or my shadow self, that I don't always like bringing to light. But if you don't work with those things, then you never grow through them. And my word for the tower, I have a really hard time breaking it down to one. So I'll cheat and say disruption of the known dysfunction.
Okay, great. Thanks,
That's
CK.
so good. Thank you.
CK, where are you from?
Oh, sorry. I'm from Virginia, but I'm actually here in Fort Collins. I'm super grateful that Teresa was kind enough to bring me into the fold.
What part of Virginia?
I'm from Hampton, but I went to the University of Virginia in Charlottesville.
Okay, I'm from Virginia Beach.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of
Small world.
synchronicities going on.
Well, thank you. And we have Elizabeth, right?
Yes. Hi. I'm Elizabeth. I'm currently in Herndon, Fairfax County, Virginia. And I lived half my life in Colorado, mostly CU Boulder and then Denver. And I would go to Billie's Dream Group almost every week, and to several of the retreats, which were totally mind-blowing. And I still consider Colorado my home. I have been dabbling in the tarot probably for about 30 years. Often it goes in phases. And my experience with the tower has been one of, I would almost call it a system rewrite. Because I had what I was telling Billie, I had what I would call a deconversion experience. Where I was reading about the tower in the Barbara Walker tarot. And it talks about the imagery of the lightning as being from Lucifer, the light bringer, and all the history. And it's pretty mind-blowing. And it made me feel a little, I don't know. So I went to bed, and it's like I woke up, and it is as if some computer virus had rewritten my hard drive. And all I knew is that I had never considered myself Christian or believing in it anyway. But all of a sudden, I knew I could never, ever, ever again believe any of that mythology. It was like ripped out of my system. And what was really mind-blowing about it is that I felt bereft. I realized, I didn't realize you could grieve for something you didn't know you had. It was basically a transformation that took years to kind of come into some balance. But I remember waking up and I was having panic attacks for months. I thought, oh, that's what people are talking about. That wasn't much fun. Eradication of old beliefs.
Thank you for that, Elizabeth. That is a classic tower story. Thank you very much, because I'm hanging on to something I don't even know that I was hanging on to. That's sort of the theme of it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you. That's what we're all going through right now, I think.
Yeah.
Bo? Bo?
Oh, you're
Could I ask one more thing?
yeah.
Could I ask everyone who isn't talking to mute themselves? Because
Yeah.
if you use a computer volume, sometimes it creates a feedback loop.
That's right. Thank you for that.
So we hear everything
Thank
weird.
you. Thank
Thanks.
you very much.
So
Yeah.
Bo is following the instructions. She is muted. So we'd like, but you can please introduce yourself. Nope, we can't hear you yet.
Are you talking to me?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Are you talking to me?
Talking to you.
You.
My name is Bo and I live in Boulder, and it's nice to see everyone. I just like adventure, in all forms. And I know every time I connect with Billie and the people that she pulls into her, I know it's going to be a lovely adventure.
So buckle up.
So buckle up. It's gonna be a bumpy ride. Okay, so that being said, I have to do a phrase too, and the only thing I could come up with when I was putting my brain to it was the perennial restoration of balance.
Wow.
Perennial.
Perennial or parental? Perennial.
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 Like
Perennial, like
ongoing, the perennial restoration of balance.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
yeah.
So everybody shifted a bit. So we haven't heard from Nada yet, though, right? Nada just joined today.
Yes, you know what? Last time I screwed up the time zone, and this time I forgot to sign up, even though I had it in my calendar. But so thank you for letting me in, Billie. I'm in Detroit area, and I'm pretty new to this whole dream work and tarot, and I'm learning so much and how to think with this, which is really helpful to me. And this is intriguing to me, the pandemic in the tower. And I don't have one word, but the thing that resonates with me is shaky foundation.
Wow, that's a whole lot of it. So have we heard from everyone now? I think.
Ruthie.
Ruthie. She joined. Yeah, but then Ruthie, we can't. You have your video off.
I got it. Thanks. And I'm very unstable internet, so I apologize. So let's see. And that's why I missed the first few minutes because I couldn't get on. What do I need to tell you guys?
Just who you are and where you're calling from, and what one word or phrase that you might think of when you think of the tower.
Oh, there she is.
So my name is Ruthie Ehrman, and I'm going to keep it short.
Yeah, it works better without your video. If you stop your video, we'll be able to hear your audio better. So do you want me to stop the video and then here? Let me try it on my end here.
I got it.
Okay.
Hear me now better?
A little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll speak up. So when I think of towers, I think of, and I think Catherine, it was the word mind-blowing, because it's like total resurrection and total falling apart, exploding, falling apart, and so before the recreation of something new. Yeah, and I've been noticing that a lot in myself. A lot of things that are falling apart in my life that really needed to go by the wayside. So, but oops, how did that happen? So,
well,
creating.
We're not getting
after the explosion. Are you not? You can't hear me?
It's really it's very staticky and cuts in and out. But maybe you'll be able to do what we're going to go ahead and get started here. Okay. How about if Andrew, you want to do a little bit of flute, and then I'll do, or no, first you want to do the meditation, Patti, or you want to start with flute?
Why don't we let Andrew do the flute, and then you can give him the times up, and then I'll do a little, kind of center into a little meditation with a little reading about what the tarot might say according to Alejandro.
That sounds good.
And then we'll get started with the group.
Okay, sounds good. Andrew, go ahead.
So as we take a minute to pause together here and breathe in this moment that will never come again, I invite you to allow the tower and the energy of this changing world that we're in to be there in a way that transforms. So we breathe in trust and knowing. And if the tower could speak, might say, I am the temple. The entire world is an altar I make sacred. My life, like yours, proves at every heartbeat that the world is divine, that the flesh is a living celebration and life a never-ending construction. With me, you will know the joy that is the key to the sacred. I am life itself, the transformation and the reconstruction, the flame and the energy of everything alive, of all matter and all spirit. If you wish to enter me, you must rejoice, cast into the fire the infantile whims of sorrow and fear, and ask yourself every time you awake, what shall I celebrate now? I am the cataclysmic joy of living, the permanently unforeseen and marvelous catastrophe. So let's just take that in as we start our conversation, and when you're ready, come back into the space with us.
Great, marvelous catastrophe.
I know, isn't that great? So this is one of my favorite books, and I love that he does that in there. So I've been opening with, if the card could speak, what would it say? And it just really takes me into the card. So
Who is it? Who's it by?
Alejandro, I can't say it either.
Jodorowsky.
I just discovered him and I just watched a movie of his last night. Crazy coincidence.
Oh, wow, that is a
Thank you.
coincidence.
He's like a Renaissance man. He does a lot of different things. Yeah.
And here's the tower from this deck. The what's this deck called, Billy?
Okay.
Marseille, that's right. I got these when I was in France.
Bring it a little bit closer, Patti.
Yeah. Notice.
Thank you.
Notice the crown that's knocking off. There. That's an image, and I'm going to actually do a quick screen share here, so you can see this card a little closer, because this is a piece that I this is a PDF that I put together from the
Hey, Billy.
yes.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I guess I am. I was just thinking because we have some new tarot people, maybe just like a snippet of what is the tarot. I know that's like not a snippet question, but does anybody, I mean, I don't know, like kind of.
Well, yeah, what I would say if somebody asked me that question, like you did, and I'm on the phone and I have to answer, it's a map of the unconscious, is what I would say. It's a map of the archetypes of the unconscious, in my version of it. Because even if I'm somebody who's never looked at a tarot card, I don't have any idea what a tarot card is, I'm still going to be manifesting these archetypes throughout my life. The Fool, for instance, when the group we did with the Fool, there's always going to be a time in my life where I jump into the unknown and not know what's happening and have to trust. And a sense of, and Lisbeth, you had something about that?
Well, and I think you can also see the journey of the tarot as a journey of the Fool across the arcana cards.
Right, exactly.
So as the arcana cards go from magician to high priestess to empress, emperor, all the way through, by 16, the tower's number 16, so he's ready for sort of a revelation or a basically rewrite.
Some kind of breakthrough, yeah. Right, exactly, because the card before is 15, the devil. So it's the information that I've
and the next card is the sun, and then the tarot in 22 and 21 is the world.
Right.
But then the next card is 22, the Fool, which is also 0. Yeah. So it's this constant evolution and learning.
Well, right, and for those that are really, really new, I think, Catherine, you're pretty good with the history, aren't you? Like the original idea of tarot. To me, I'm so bad at remembering details of history. I get an idea of something and it's kind of vague. But to me, I think of it as back in the day when the Christians were suppressing the teachings of the mystery schools, and so they went underground, and it became the symbolism. Yeah, there you go. The origin, history, and symbolism. So it was a way for people to stay connected to the mystery schools. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, yes, there's that, and there's also the fact of the matriarchal wisdom, needing to find another way to survive. It's very, very ancient wisdom, Patti. It's pre-written word. It goes back thousands of years.
Yeah.
I would recommend the Barbara Walker book.
Yes.
It's pretty dark, actually, and coming from quite a feminist perspective. So
she's excellent that way.
Yeah, it came out in, it's been a while. Was that copyright?
So just for me, the whole idea of the tower in this experience is, the tarot's got the major arcana, which goes from the Fool to the world, and there's 22 cards. And then there's it looks like a deck of cards, the rest of it, the suits and the things. And so Billy and I have been we've been called to certain cards of the major arcana, and the tower to me is, golly, liberation was the word that I came up with, because it's all about structures kind of falling apart, and instead of it being a bad thing, it's actually something that's creating room for something else. So,
well, yeah, and one of the things that we have to remember is that 9/11 was a waking life metaphor image of the tower. And in fact, when 9/11 happened, I was new into dream work, and I had just joined all of these, you know, email sharing groups, and it just, everything lit up, because I got chills when I said that, because all of the dream workers were like, do you see what's happening? Because right in front of us, an image of the tower was right in our waking life. And the fact that there were two towers brings it even more into consciousness. So they called it the Twin Towers. They didn't call it the Twin Skyscrapers or the Twin Build. They called it the Twin Towers. So even though, like I was saying before, even if someone who has never studied symbolism or archetypes, they still show up in our lives. So 9/11 was the last time around that we had this big wake-up call. It recreated it almost identical to how it appears in the cards. A very tall building on fire with people jumping out of it. So, and crumbling to the ground.
The fire is near the top, and that's relevant as well, but I'll...
No, go ahead. But no, please continue.
Because it's near the top, which, you know, in our own bodies is the head, it links to ideas and beliefs and identity patterns to do with emotions and what we think is true. And it's relevant that the collapse starts at the top, where basically the response would be, gosh, I don't understand what's happening. And also a kind of death of an egoic part.
Exactly.
Up here.
Right.
Anyway,
No, that's it. And that's why often it's depicted with the tower image is depicted with a crown, and the crown is falling off. It's a way of emphasizing that haughtiness, that part of me that thinks I'm higher than everything, and the ego part that has gone out of control, that has to fall off first in order for the paradigm to crumble, in order for it to start over.
And I think what Christine said about being naughty is really interesting too, because as we talk about the tower and talk about the tarot and how its origins to me were symbolic to stay close to the spiritual wisdom of the ancient teachings, because it was so cut off from the religion. And so we've been so cut off now, I think, in our world in the patriarchal model, and it's kind of going to fall apart. Well, it is falling apart in this experience of this pandemic. We're experiencing something that we've never, well, in our lifetime, haven't experienced, and things are falling apart. And good news, bad news. You know, the tower is representing the letting go of this power, external power and control. And one more thing, and then I'm excited to see your PowerPoint, Billie. Sorry that I interrupted. I was thinking about being naughty, and you know, the experience of being able to talk about this now in a different kind of way. Because to me, religion tries to give structure to something, and then it becomes an external power, where spirituality is really archetypal, because it's a real mystery. And so that's why the archetypes, to me, and that's why I love working with Billie so much, is because she's so good with the archetypes. I mean, I don't think we can describe God or heaven or whatever the way religions try to do it. To me, it's archetypal. So when we work with the archetypes, we feel into something that's a mystery. And so anyway.
Yeah, very good. So Bo, you had your hand up? Or your electronic?
Yeah, you have to, thank you. I had to unmute myself. You know, it was funny. I was looking, I just, when I knew I was coming to the group, I wanted to bounce something off you guys, and I'll be as rapid as possible. But it seems like the perfect group to bounce it off of or to share it with. And I was just watching something on YouTube this morning that was also talking about 9/11 as a harbinger of sorts. You know, and that's pretty amazing to me. But speaking of harbingers, I had forgotten that back in the October, okay, there just, I don't know when in October, there were these two little boys playing, and they came up to me as I got out of my car in my apartment building, and they go, do you know anything about bats? And I said, I beg your pardon, sweetie? Bats. And they took me over, and there was this bat that apparently fallen off of someplace, and I couldn't figure out where it was nesting. It had to be the pine tree or something. And it looked in shock. So I picked it up with a piece of paper, you know, and I'm going, well, do I take it to a vet? You know, what do I do with this creature? I had never seen one so close, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And all of a sudden it woke up because they can't hear noise. So it must have felt the movement as I was transporting it.
Right.
You know? And it opened its mouth, and its mouth is this hole, like this perfect hole. And it's going, oh, like that. And it felt like it was sucking me in. It was just amazing. And then it just took off the paper and flew away.
So wow.
So
making life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Man, geez.
And the bats are the ones that apparently were the wild creatures that were involved in creating the virus in the first place. So I just wanted to bounce that off you because it seems like a waking dream to me. I mean, damn.
Yeah, I know. That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing it. It's like quite profound. I mean, it's like before we all had gone into this idea of even a virus. Well, I mean, the first I ever heard of anything was somewhere around that time, like October, November. Yeah, this terrible virus that had happened in China. And then it was still at the part of like, oh, you know, wow, isn't that tragic? But then there was never this feeling of how is it going to impact our lives? And then
It feels that way.
As it started moving through Europe, the Europeans started saying, watch out, because you're next. And sure enough, it hit us just as hard as they predicted. And, you know, this is one of the things we've talked about so much in these gatherings is that we cannot escape how connected we are. And this is one of the hugest reminders that our wake-up calls that we've all received is whether, you know, regardless of our background or our nationality or anything, we are all going to be affected by this, and we are. And the other, and here goes, Denise had a comment. Go ahead, Denise.
Well, the thing that I'm thinking of when Bonita told that story was I was thinking about a dream that someone shared with me the other day, and a bird was a prominent symbol in it. And I remember Jeremy talking about birds, you know, and messengers and stuff like that. And just all of a sudden, I'm sitting here when I'm listening to this story about the bat, and I'm thinking, you know, bats might be messengers too, and are bats messengers from the shadow?
Wow. Yeah. Oh.
Because they live in the dark.
Yeah.
You know, they feed in the dark. They come out in the dark. They fly like, you know, not exactly like birds, but I'm just, all of a sudden I just flashed on, you know, we get all kinds of messages. And what if bats, if I had a bat in a dream, you know, I might think, oh, there's a message coming here. Might it be coming from my shadow? And might this bat induced incubated virus, whatever the word you want to use is, might this be a messenger from the collective shadow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Here's Andrew has something. Andrew, go ahead.
I was motivated to bring this in. I know this is the card we did last time, but for some reason I drew it last night, and it's a bat, you know, like it's hanging upside down. It says new truths and perceptions. And a couple short quotes here. It says, all bats are the only mammals that fly. All flight implies a rising above, the promise hidden within chaotic energies of change. Presence of bat always indicates new perceptions and endeavors are about to take flight amidst the energies of change. And it says under the reversed one, we need to take a new perspective. We need to let go of the past. We need to release or change some aspect of our life for rebirth to occur. This reminds me of the fire around the head part.
Right.
We must remember that change is only upsetting to the degree we remain emotionally attached to what is no longer beneficial. Every aspect of facing our fears has value for us, no matter how messy it may seem.
And that's a tower card in your deck?
It's actually not. It's actually the Hanged Man in this deck.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
It seems related. It says, that often challenges us to let go of the old and create the new.
But it also sort of came out of our discussion about bats.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. We talked about the Hangman last month, and this is really interesting. All the bats that are showing up.
It's all connected. It's all connected.
The only mammal that flies.
Margaret, you had a comment?
Yeah. You know, I love this. This is all associative thinking, which is where I go. Okay. We're talking about bats, and I have been, I'm an old spelunker, so I've been in a lot of caves, which made me also curious in bats from about 40 years ago. My comment is that the guano that they produce is full of gold. So it is the purest and best fertilizer out there. So I just want to make that, I just want to add that to the mix, okay?
How do they do that? What is it?
What guano is their
bat poop.
It's their poop.
It's their
golden. They have golden poop.
Mined and sold around the world. There are whole guano islands off Peru.
Yeah, you know, I didn't know if I know you well enough to use the word shit, but that's exactly what it is. Okay.
That works. Yeah, that works.
Hey, Margaret, thank you for that, because that talk about a dream image. That's something that people often dream about is a dysfunctional toilet. You know, it's like I try to flush the toilet and everything comes up, and people get very embarrassed about that. And all of us dream workers and any of us with experience go, yay! And we start applauding and getting excited because whenever if I'm a dreamer that has that dream, it's like I have to deal with the shit in order to turn it into gold. So to start the alchemical process, I first have to look at it. So that's a wonderful thing you brought up. Thank you very much. That really connects to what we're talking about.
Well, and I also think about the tower that bats live. I mean, when I think about where do bats live, they live up in sort of little towers. You know, trees. Bat houses are up. You know, they don't live on the ground.
That's
they live in caves, but they hang from the top part of the caves.
Right.
That's in the belfry, the term, see? Think about that. Belfries where the bells are, they're at the top of a tower.
Wow, this is fascinating.
All connected. It's all connected.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And whenever we're all referring to Jeremy, and I know some of you don't know who Jeremy is, but Jeremy, when we say the word, when Jeremy says, Jeremy Taylor, unfortunately passed away a couple years ago, but he was a very well-known dream worker and dream book author and workshop leader, and I worked with him for many years, and many of us on the call here have been trained by Jeremy. So when we say Jeremy says, so my comment right now is that Jeremy warned me at some point when I got really involved with fairy tales, in addition to the dreams, he says, oh, Billie, when you wake these archetypes up, they always want to be fulfilled. That there's some part of this, they're like, they're like lotus blossoms. They just keep wanting to unfold. So when we just experienced what happened here with the collective, we go into discussing bat. Bo tells her story about the bat, and then Andrew's got, oh, well, wait, remember this card? And then all the descriptions count. And then Margaret's wonderful story. So it's all connected. And so this is sort of the continuing from the group we did as Patti said last month about the hangman. So all the archetypes like to talk together in my version of it.
Well, and what I'm sensing is that the discussion we had last time about the Hanged Man is so important, and like we're talking about in the tower and how that bats live up there. as an introduction into what we're talking about today, because it seems like really important that this upside down suspension that we talked about last time, because I'm feeling this too. I feel like we're going to be in this for a long time. And when the Tower card, I think we're just now starting to blow it up. I mean, there's so much that's going to be falling apart over a period of time. And I think that hanging upside down where nothing is the same. I watched Mary Poppins Returns and the topsy-turvy scene with Meryl Streep this week because I kept thinking everything's like turned upside down. And so the bat coming up today to me tells me in my version that we're kind of still kind of hanging, not knowing how everything's going to fall apart, and certainly not how it's all going to come back together. But I just found that fascinating that the bat just kept showing up in this suspended state that we seem to be in.
Two popular characters from popular music, Batman, The Dark Knight. His origins where some character came and just murdered his parents, so that's a real tower beginning to his whole epic bat story, going underground and ending up fighting crime. And then there's Harry Potter, who's famous for the getting the lightning strike on his the scar on his forehead when he encounters this real potent unnamed evil guy. And then so those are two tower events that then seem to tie into, and then he lives in a closet for a while with some, ordinary people. And then so it's interesting how the two striking events are related to then having to go on this it's a long circular journey, it seems like. Facing darkness ultimately. Yeah.
So thank you. So Christine, not the Christine, not Christine. CK,
Yeah. I had a couple things that I kind of wanted to share. Both the first part is I had my first reading with someone who wasn't just me in early March, kind of before it all kicked off. And the question that I asked, the question I tend to ask is, what do I need to learn, from past, present, future? What do I need to learn right now? And the card that she drew for what you need to learn right now, or learn from right now, was the Tower, which feels ominous, but also really gives me gratitude to be in this space. And part two, kind of going back to this discussion of the Tower, in my deck, so I use the Wild Unknown, and my deck, the Tower is actually a tree. Ooh. With its head being hit. And so I just think there is some connection to, I appreciate the connection to nature and the connection back to our discussion about the imagery of the bat and their home. I just felt, I don't know, it felt a little bit germane. We'll go with germane.
That's good. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you.
The other thing I want to say about the Tower and what CK just said with the top of the tree is that it makes me think of that. I don't even remember what it was for, but there was a commercial that was like, whack, I needed that. And I feel like at a certain level, that's sort of what the Tower is. That's sort of what it's a very bizarre thing to say, but at a certain level, that's sort of what I think, whatever words you want to put in there, the universe, the great mystery, the divine, blah, 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 is trying to say to us as a species, whack, snap out of it. And I think that causing for this big pandemic to happen at a certain level, it's a way in which, let's see, how do I want to say this? You can run, but you can't hide. It's coming, baby. And it's like it's going to happen whether we know what's going on collectively or archetypically or not, it be bigger than us.
Yes.
Can I say something? Because I can't find my raised hand.
Oh,
this is Ruthie.
Please go ahead, Ruthie. Yeah.
Okay. So God, everything everyone is saying, I've had thoughts of as well, like the 9/11 and the ego. And also I just realized I the last person, the last woman, your name, because it shows up as Mark.
Denise is her real
Yeah,
name.
I'm Denise. My husband is Mark.
Denise.
Sorry.
Okay, Denise. Yeah. So what you were saying about the tower really, no, I forgot exactly what I was going to say, but basically, our government is acting now. So it's like they're up in a tower, kind of like, and they're, I also thought about Rapunzel, who, is trapped in the tower, and how us down here, we're like the lowlies down here on the ground, and in the ego getting what's that word when it explodes, implosion, with the ego getting imploded. I feel like we're getting closer and closer to being grounded, which is living more with our hearts. I don't know if that's true, and I'm hoping it's true, but that's kind of what I'm seeing, is that this is breaking all our illusions.
Yes.
This egoic illusions, and opening up to a new world, and hopefully living within our hearts. So yeah.
That's
Thank you.
that's perfect, Ruthie, because yeah, that's the idea of, when I was doing more research before this group, it's like that's a lot of what the commentary was, to realize that what we thought was solid, what we thought was our structure, was really an illusion. It was all built on sand. And so that's really what the gift of the tower is to break us free of that illusion.
Can we have your screen share now? Because I cut you off earlier.
Oh, okay. Screen share. I've got to work with my screen here for a second. Hang on. I got to. Okay, so let's. I'll show you some images here. Let's do. Oh boy, hang on. I was all set up before, see, Patty.
I'm sorry, it's all my fault. The shower is breaking down.
You broke my. Yeah.
While you're looking, I'll just say the card I was holding up is from my inner child deck, and when she said Rapunzel, I thought that was really interesting, because I love my inner child deck, because they take fairy tales and they put it with each of the cards in the tarot.
Here we go. Here's this first.
Yay!
What is it about Rapunzel? I'm curious. That's something about that reaching up to that person in the tower. It seemed like
Rapunzel.
Well, we'll go back to that if you want after Billie finishes here.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Although I just noticed that on Billie's screen on the very left, it says the image of the tower reminds us of the. Now it's cut off. Something about
Rapunzel. It does.
That's why I guess I had to wait to share this. Thank you, Ingrid. That's very, very observant of you. Yeah. This, I will send this to you. It's just a copy of one page from the Rachel Pollack book.
Good.
She talks about exactly that the imagery shows up in the story Rapunzel. It also shows up in the Lord of the Rings, in the Dark Tower. She even talks about the Tower of Babel, and the other book, The Hero's Journey and the Tarot. He also talks about how the Tower of Babel is another example of what was torn down because it was faulty structure. So let me make this a little bigger and see if I can. These are the images I wanted to show because Rachel Pollack picks out. There's the part that Patti showed us at the beginning with.
My God, look at that.
Marseille cards, and then here's other images. See, now this one in the second from the right seems as though this book was written in 1999. I had to check when the cover was, because that certainly looks like the
Twin Towers.
Yeah, those are the kind of things that live in the unconscious. See, someone created that card, and she took, and it even looks like that's obviously a Hebrew letter or something there on the right, but it looks like a little airplane to me, an airplane.
Yep.
I'm thinking, oh my God. So that's those are just some images that came across, but this crown that wants to fall off it has to fall off in order for the transformation to take place. So it's something that throws us out of our sense of what do you want to the sense of everything being okay and comfort. Another thing that they talk about is, like, for instance, like a relationship. Say, for instance, I'm in a relationship that isn't necessarily nurturing and is maybe even abusive, but I'm someone who continues to hang on to that relationship because that's all I know. Those are the kind of things that the metaphors that can show up with the tower energy. So she calls it storm and release. So that's one of the things I wanted to share. But I have a couple PDFs that I'll send to everyone afterwards. But yeah, we recommend, this is copyrighted material, so remember it's Rachel Pollack's book, and I recommend this book. And
What is it called?
well, that's
It's just tarot?
Complete Illustrated Guide to the Tarot.
Oh,
it's very it's an interesting way they put it together, because it's really it's not linear in my version of it. It's kind of more like, hey, so let's look at this part of it and let's look at this part of it. So it's a little difficult to find things in the index, but it's a really wonderful book to just sort of thumb through and look at what appeals to you and read little bits and pieces of different commentary. So a couple of other images, as many of you that do dreams with me know that I always use the Osho Zen Tarot to close out every dream. The Osho Zen Tarot they did it just thunderbolt. It's not even a building. It's not even a tower. It's a meditating figure with burning and thunderbolts all around. And
it's just like
it's like what?
Excuse me.
Go ahead. Margaret, go ahead.
I guess I'm not muted. I'm sorry.
Well, that's fine. We can hear your exclamations.
If you look at the thing, I never thought about this before. If you look at that thing, that could also be, I don't know when that card was done. I hate this. My worst remembered images burned on me is the images I saw of people jumping out of that building.
Right.
I can't tell you. I guess, those are things of which nightmares, out of which nightmares are created. I mean, it's amazing. It really is.
Well,
does everybody have the Rider-Waite? Isn't that in the Rider-Waite picture, people jumping out?
Definitely. It's a common symbol.
It's the church and the Pope. It's not just the crown, it's also the church that's falling off. So it's both authorities, patriarchal authorities.
Right. So that's the Rider-Waite, which is one of the most common images. And right, there's always people falling off of the tower or jumping. But they're jumping because they have no choice. Exactly what happened in the 9/11 images that you're talking about, Margaret. Those people had no choice. So that's why I was saying before, we have to see how these archetypes show up in our waking life, because they're there. It's going to happen. This is
that's the one in the two books that I have. The one just to where your finger is right now. Yep. Talk about that one. Yeah.
Well, that's Aleister Crowley's deck.
Yeah, that's one up.
So this is a great book too that I use all the time. And you can see how weathered it is. It's been through a lot with me. And I like it because she does take the Rider-Waite and the Crowley deck, and she compares them side by side and talks about both of them.
That's judgment.
Whoops.
Maybe that's our next one.
Right? It wants to be part of this discussion. Crowley was so unique. I mean, he's a really unusual dude. But see, he has an eye up above.
See, I wore my eye today. I don't know if you can see this. I wore this today because to me it looks like that eye, the eye of Horus. I mean, it's
right.
And my sister gave me this a long time ago, and I was really drawn to it. I didn't choose it, but I just love this thing.
So Billy, what's the other remember you were talking about there's the tower and then there's the opposite or the what's the right word? You know how there's the one that's related?
Yeah,
You know
we'll get to that in a second. I think
Okay.
Catherine had a comment. We got a couple of hands up here.
Okay.
Catherine,
I have two comments. Eye of Horus links to the Gnostic wisdom mystery tradition that is Egyptian and earlier origin in my version of how to understand it. And I want to say something too. Is it Margaret down there? Margaret?
Yeah, it's Margaret.
In the early part of the century, Francis Perkins witnessed that terrible fire in New York that killed all those garment workers.
The garment workers, yeah.
And it was a fire on upper floors that ended up with women jumping out of windows and landing and dying on impact. But the reason that I wanted to bring, it was a terrible thing. It was a terribly disruptive tower experience. And yet Francis Perkins used that experience to write all kinds of things into labor law when she was Secretary of Labor under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So what I'm saying is a tower experience can trigger someone to use what falls apart to create a different structure.
Positive.
And, and that's a historical, Frances Perkins, she's Social Security, she's hours of working, child labor, conditions for working. And so she used that experience, and that to me is what is built into this opportunity of structural collapse, opens opportunities for all kinds of creative new structures.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Where the gold arises from the shit.
There you go.
Thank you.
Teresa, you had your hand up. Teresa?
Yeah, so I am curious about something. I said my words were polarity, permanence, and transformation. And as I'm listening to everybody, I wonder if I need to wake up to nothing continues. I've been very influenced by Ken Wilber's Transcend and Include. And while I welcome, even though it's scary, the chance to bridge the equity gap we have around the world and power gap, there's still, like, Billie, I'd want to see you in that future. so I'm just thinking, am I being curious enough about how much really needs to break apart, or is there a place to bring something still forward as we change everything?
Right. Very, and that's a big piece of this, Teresa. And Catherine actually posted a great blog post on the Facebook event page, which talks a lot about that kind of idea. Like, now we can't be too like, oh yay, everything's going to be different now, and oh yay, it's all going to change. We have to actually take the steps to help see how that's going to take place. Well, what we've talked about on these groups before is we certainly have found out that the people that get paid the least are the people that we rely on the most. The grocery store clerks, the garbage collectors, the janitors, the waiters and the waitresses, and how difficult how that whole community basically and business of individually owned restaurants, how is that going to ever come back the way it was before? So we have to be part of the change. So I think that's an important comment to how do I consciously help create the new. So Bo, you had your hand up too. Go ahead.
So it was funny that she just mentioned how far it will go, because that's exactly what I was thinking. The Eye of the Tower, in the Lord of the Rings, there's also in the Crowley picture, if you can see this, it says that the eye above the tower is Shiva.
Yeah, right, the destroyer.
Okay. And right down here, there's this circle of a mouth with fire coming out of it. And I went, oh, well, darn.
Like your bat. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just thinking, when you said jump, that triggered me kind of to a thought line. And I was thinking, how far is this going to go? Because when I think of healing, when I allow myself to get an idea of healing and I entertain that, which I try not to do very often, you know, because it's just not going to work. I hold it to this planet. I hold the healing to this planet. And I think maybe for me and maybe for all of this is the healing, or is the transformation just this planet, or do we have to make that jump? How far do we have to go?
Ooh. Wow, we got a couple of hands.
Yeah, I got a chill on that one too. Do we have to? Oh God, I can't stop.
Let's do Elizabeth.
More about what that means. I didn't quite get it. I know it's important, but I don't quite get what the distinction is between vision or
I'm
planet.
kind of not getting it either, because when these thoughts come up, I struggle for words.
Not yet.
You know, when the feelings come up, I struggle to put them into words. But what I'm saying is, even if we don't get back to where we were, which is not where we're supposed to be because we aren't going to be there anymore.
Right.
Our idea of healing, or maybe we don't even picture it. Maybe we just hold that thought in a non-specific place that we all think healing of the earth, you know? But do we have to make the jump to realize that the transformation is bigger than the earth, or bigger than our picture of who we are? Do we have to make that jump? And is this making us make that jump?
Oh, that okay. I got it.
Yeah, I know. I did it again.
So let me say, in astrology, the words are as above, so below. That is huge in you know how big that is. But those for me are always the words. As above, so below. And that can be a very large imagined picture.
And can I speak to that now, please?
Sure, let me.
Have any of you looked into the writings and teachings around ascension? I mean, it kind of sounds like the New Age version of the rapture, but a lot of psychics and medium are talking about there is an ascension process going on Earth, but also in our solar system and technically the whole galaxy. So we, as a small, tiny part on Earth, are, well, actually important, because the Earth is the heart chakra of our galaxy. And ascension from, well, this is channeled by Patricia Corey. It's called the Syrian Prophecies. She has 3 books. I started with Atlantis Rising because it interested me, Virginia Beach and all that. But it kind of blew my mind, so I went for the other books. I think Atlantis Rising is kind of the best of them, but it talks about how the Earth is ready to ascend to the 4th and 5th dimension. So out of 3D reality into 4 and 5D, which means no bodies, no life as we know it. The way she describes it, I think, is sort of the Earth, the sun will go first, because he is the main energy of the solar system, will go into a black hole and suck with it all the other planets. So we're out of 3D, and those who have raised their vibration enough can pretty much do the shift in their whatever body structure, ego structure, and those who don't will just go back to reincarnation and cycle back or cycle somewhere else. So I think opening your mind to, beyond Earth, beyond anything, beyond our frequency level, different dimensions, I think is a good way, to sort of have that in the vibe. Because this ascension thing theoretically is supposed to happen relatively soon.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, like 10 years or so.
Denise, I see your hand, but Christine's had her hand up for a while, so I'm going to go to CK Christine first. Yeah.
Thank you. There's so much beauty in what you just said as the above, and to echo Catherine and the old words, I'm going to go kind of below. As you showed the Tower card with not only the crown, to me feels like a symbol of big institutional government, right? Federal government, national government, larger governing bodies, the church. It feels like, and I'm just feeling this now, the sense that if we ditch these patriarchal systems, and look to transform them, right, and to transform ourselves and connect with our communities, our local communities, that kind of feels like how we're going to get to ground and get to a position of strength. And I thought it was very interesting that there's Teresa kind of talked about that permanence and transformation. Our local communities, even though they're transforming, even though they're changing, we're all still here.
Yeah.
And it just ties back to that sense of we're all connected in the big picture, but connecting with those around you, even the ones you don't know that well, has so much power. And I think that's where we're going to get back to ground and being centered.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you. So Denise, thank you for being patient. Go ahead.
Sure. The thing that I've thought about has been sort of circling what all these everyone else is saying, but what I wanted to get back to was that card, the Osher Zen card that you held up, which was the image of the person and all the storm. And so for me, that very much ties into the discussion in that is the below. As above, so below. It's like the macrocosm and the microcosm. The tower at a certain level to me is the macrocosm. These gigantic institutions, this gigantic perspective has to change. But that card that you put up, that's the person. Right. And it's also like at another level, that's an image of the tower collapsing, because in my version of that picture, boom, all of those energy centers in that person, all of those chakras are being sort of woken up and changed and put through some major changes here. And so sort of what we're talking about in this whole discussion has been at one level, the individual, the community, the down, the below, so to speak, and the above, which is the big picture. And it seems like in our discussion, we're actually talking about above and below.
What's going on within? That's the idea. Yeah. Wow. Very good. Thank you. Phew. You guys got rocking here. We got some good discussion going. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I add something to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't find the hands up thing. So as far as the micro and the macro, basically, what I've heard, and this feels right to me, is that whatever is happening on the exterior, our outside world, is happening inside. Yeah. So we're all in such disarray and crumbling mode on the inside, like on the outside. I mean, maybe that too has to do with as above is, how does that go? As above and below. And I'm not even sure exactly how that relates, the above and the below, unless they're talking about ego versus your heart connection. But it's just, I kind of see that we're in such turmoil and the earth is in such turmoil. So it's almost like we're mirroring the earth, or the earth is mirroring us, kind of thing. I don't know who, the chicken or the egg, which came first. But anyway, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Well, certainly that's another thing we've discussed on these groups before, is how Mother Nature has given us a big wake-up call. I mean, this is, and all the information that keeps coming out about how the earth is healing through the atmosphere, and we're driving less. We're there's a lot less use of busyness, and everybody, so everything's healing because we've all slowed down and taken a moment here. We've had to. We had no choice. That's why we did the hangman a while back. So this is the idea from that new perspective of the hangman. What structures are going to crumble that we allow them to crumble because they never really were there to begin with. That's the pretty shakeup of the tower. It never really was a solid structure to begin with. So we're coming to the place where we've got about 15 minutes left or so. I might do a quick screen share just to show you a couple images, and then we can do some closing thoughts. And as I said, I'm going to make sure to send you guys these PDFs at the end, and also I will send you a link to the YouTube of this recording so that you can share it with your friends that weren't able to attend today. Hang on, I'm trying to get this to work. So give me a second. All right, let's do it. Screen share. And where is it? There it is. Okay, so this is from the book that we've been talking about, The Hero's Journey and the Tarot. And I will send you this PDF. So here we go with the images that we've been talking about, the people jumping from the tower and the fire at the top, as Catherine mentioned, and the crown falling off. And then what's wonderful about this book, and I highly recommend it, is he often shows the comparison or the correlation of certain other cards in the deck. And this, for the tower, he shows us that the Four of Wands is an example of that pleasant structure, that home, that tower that we can rely on. And he uses the example of the parental home. The tower, so our parental home should always be a place where, we can feel safe and we can feel happy and nurtured, as is shown in this Four of Wands. And you can see in the background, there is the tower. So there's sort of like this hint that this is coming up. So then, but later in our life, we can't stay in our parents' home forever. That's an example. He uses an example, the idea of like, well, okay, by the time I'm 40, if I'm still living in my parents' home and my mother's still making me breakfast, there's something has to shake it up to where I leave that what was known to be safe and secure. So again, the Tower of Babel is mentioned. He shows a lot of different images from mythology, and again, talks about fairy tales and how the Rapunzel tower, and even talks about Hansel and Gretel and how Hansel has to break free from his idea of what's safe and nurturing, and Gretel is the one that helps him. The inner feminine is the one that helps him to escape that prison. So this is a lot of, really good in-depth stuff about the how it connects with all different civilizations and stories, mythology. So I highly recommend it. And then we're going to go down here to the end and show some more images. Here we go. And then he also shows the Chariot as another connecting card. Because again, in the background of the Chariot card, you can see the tower. And the Chariot's all about going forward, traveling, breaking free of duality, because both of the Sphinx in the front, there's a black and a white. So breaking free of that black and white thinking, that idea of splitting everything apart into one or the other. So by the time we get to the tower, all of the illusions are dissolved. So I will send this to you later, and then you can read it at your leisure. So any closing thoughts while we're bringing this to, as Jeremy would say, an arbitrary close? Go ahead, Denise.
I thought of Jeremy. And I thought about the fact that one of the things he always talked about was, for him, dream work was a political statement. It was his way of community organizing, and his whole if I remember correctly, over and over again, he would talk about the point of doing dream work in groups is to own our projections and to take the view of the other. And when I think about the tower, when I think about the tower collapsing, I think about the fact that we have to take a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
We can't put the tower back together with the same old perspective. And that at a certain level, we are being called as humans, as a species, to, and we've also, it's been sort of in our face about how people are suffering and how the workers that we depend on are underpaid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think of Jeremy, and I think of the fact that he thought that, my understanding of what, in my perception of what Jeremy thought, was that as we evolve forward, part of the goal of our spiritual and psychological evolution is to be able to see from multiple views and from multiple perspectives. Yes. And my feeling about the tower is that that is an invitation to end the old perspective. The old perspectives have kind of like blown up in our face. And now we're being asked, can we bring new perspectives to ourselves, to our fellow people, to the world?
Right, very good. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I would say Jeremy, first and foremost, was a social activist. He was just incognito as a dream worker and a minister, but he was always about social activism. Yeah.
So Ingrid, you had something?
Yeah, so just a quick comment. I have been spending a lot of my time at home listening to a lecture series online about the French Revolution. I don't know why I was drawn to it, but I mean, I like history and I like France, so that's probably why. But it's been interesting to listen to this discussion in that context, because I literally just listened to one right before this, you know, about actually it was about women in the revolution, which was really interesting. But the tower, especially with the crown at the top, just seems so fitting in that story.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to listen to that and then think about what's happening now, and that feeling of disruption, like major disruption.
Yeah.
You know, that feeling, you know, is the feeling of the tower, and that feeling that I'm, you know, really feeling these days a lot. But it's in a more, you know, maybe like microcosm type of thing now, with all of us at home, you know, by ourselves. And as a, you know, the French Revolution was very communal, the people all coming together, and that's just such a, it's just been interesting for me to think about that in the, you know, context of this discussion. Just wanted to make that comment, but also a question. Billie, you've mentioned a lot of great books that I'm totally intrigued by, and I've written them all down, but if you had one suggestion for one book that's like the best place to start, which one would it be?
This one. This is the book because when I first got into dream work and I noticed that people would dream about specific numbers, I wanted to learn more about the tarot for that reason, because I kept connecting it somehow to the tarot. And I thought, if, like, for instance, if someone dreamt of the number 12 and it kept showing up, I would think, oh, that's the hangman, but I don't know anything about the hangman. So I wanted to know more about it. So this is a great book to start. As you can see, as I showed you before, it's been through a lot with me. But yeah, and I will send you all of these titles and authors via email when I send you the PDFs. Rachel Pollack's pretty good too. This one's good if you like to, like I said, look through illustrations and just sort of go more freeform. She doesn't, it's a really odd, not odd, but it was her way of putting together this book, that it's not linear. As I said, it's more of a free-form version of how the cards relate. So
it's her perspective. You're getting it from her perspective.
Right. And you have this book too, don't you, Rachel Pollack? I think you, Denise, you mentioned that. Yeah. So she's an interesting one.
Yeah, I have a different book, but I've seen that one.
Right. And then this, so I will send all these titles and all these. This is a more advanced book because it goes so much outside of the tarot and connects it with so many different things in mythology and fairy tales. And so this is a much more advanced book. It's still extremely interesting. So anyway, I'll send all that to you later, along with the PDFs and the link to the YouTube. If you guys want to learn more about dreams and connect with me about dreams, I have a group coming up on Tuesday the 19th, which is an evening group, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Colorado time. And then I also have a group that meets 2 Thursdays a month throughout the month that is an afternoon group. So I think the next one of that is on the 28th, but I might add another group. So that one meets from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Colorado time. And if you want to know more about me and my work, go to wakeuptoyourdreams.com. And you'll also be able to get to a link there to see an interview, a conversation with me and Jeremy Taylor after hours that we recorded somewhere back in, oh gosh, I guess it was 2013. So that's kind of fun too, because we talk about all sorts of things about dreams and images and mythology and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, Patti, you want to talk about your course?
Yeah, I just launched my Moms in Real Life yesterday with my daughter Elizabeth. I've got this learning platform that I'm loving, and so I've been busy in this whole time creating course material. So the one that's free, that's up, is called Go In Not Out, Deepening Parts of Yourself in the COVID-19 Pandemic. So it's just really my work as an authenticity architect and how, I help people kind of excavate parts of themselves that they may have forgotten and got lost in the shadow. So that's up and running. You can go to my website, pattyashley.com, Patti with an I, and there's a link to sign up for that. But we did do the Moms in Real Life with my daughter, which was super fun because she's a mom. And then I'm doing one on grief coming up in June.
What is Moms in Real Life?
So my daughter, who's almost 40 and has 2 little kids, she's so passionate about helping moms, and my work has been about that for so many years, that we decided to have real conversations. I mean, that's what my book is about, living in the shadow of the Too Good Mother archetype, that, moms don't, I think a lot of what's happening I'm so excited, I just have to say, the whole idea of the tower and everything crumbling excites me tremendously, because my work has been really studying the divine feminine, and the Mary Magdalene, was cut out of the Bible, and the restoring of the feminine, I think, is what's happening with this tower crushing. So Moms in Real Life is what it really is like to be a mom, not the patriarchal version of isn't mothering great and you better do it all, mom. It's really about let's have some real conversations. So
yeah.
So it's a live conversation. Is that right?
So the courses are cool because what we've got videos that we've put up. Billie's in the you're in the first one. I interviewed her. We talked about dreams and my Go In Not Out. So we have videos, we have PowerPoints, I have text, I have meditations. So the courses are full of all kinds of different learning slides and stuff.
And you can go on your own pace.
Yeah.
So you sign up for the class, and then you get the lessons, and then you get to go through the lessons in the order as frequently as you want, or quickly, or whatever. I mean, like I did the In Not Out course, and I'm still like only 67% through it, but I keep getting these little reminders. so you
and on Fridays at 11 I have a Facebook Live where we talk about a chapter each week. So in my Authenticity Architects group, it's a smaller Facebook Live. There's only about 70 people in that group. But every Friday's a live discussion. Everything else is you just do it on your own. You just go, you check in. And it's a lot. It's a whole lot of stuff in that first course. So, in both of them, really, all of them. But I'm having fun doing it. Feels like my calling in this whole time of trying to restore the feminine and bring light back, all of us light workers. And that's why Billie and I decided to do this, is because, I kept thinking about the Carl Rogers thing, look for the helpers. And we thought, well, how can we help? And I think all of you that join us in this are helping, because the more we have these conscious conversations, the more we do create a new reality, which I'm excited because I think we've been needing it for a really long time. but it's not going to be easy. And so we have to kind of support each other. So I really appreciate Billie for doing all the hard work to bring it all together for you guys. She's really the one doing all the work here.
Thank you, Christy. Catherine, do you had something before we?
I have a request. I don't know if it's possible, but the Toko Pa article that I shared on the website about our Zoom meeting, is there any chance you could include that in the things that you send to us?
Yes, I can do that. I'm going to make a note of it right now, and I'll put it on. When I send you the links, I'll do that too. Very good.
Because the title is Rushing to Redemption.
Right.
And actually, I think that that's an important thing to bring up. When we're uncomfortable, which in my experience, the tower makes me feel uncomfortable. When I'm uncomfortable, I want to rush to, soothe that. Mm-hmm. And it can make me go too fast before all that I need to notice, before restoring. I need to actually notice, I need to pay attention to all that's been disrupted. And we haven't talked about that much in our things, so I wanted to just add that. Thank you.
Yeah. So we had
really good, thank you.
Someone else had their hand up and Margaret, go ahead, and then Bo.
I want to thank all of you. I can't thank you enough. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to be part of this group. Thanks a bunch.
Great. Well, we're glad you're here.
And I'd like to add to what Catherine just said, that following the process of actually taking the time to listen for what is happening, to feel for what is happening, then following that might be the idea of the third way, like, whatever third way is, there's a masculine, a feminine, there might be a third way. There's a mind, there's a body, there's an authority structure, then there's a democratic structure. But just holding the possibility in our imagination of a third way.
Yeah.
Like between men and women, but just, I don't know, generally in communication.
Right.
Like the new possibility of following a process of the tower that suggests wait, feel through, don't rush into redemption, but then a new way of steering the boat, so to speak, is maybe this third way.
That's good. So Bo, you had your hand up a second ago.
Let me unmute. Just a very short, I'll expedite this as much as I can. I am not a UFO person. I'm just not. I don't negate it. I don't go after it. I believe that it's egotist. I agree with the statement. It's egotistical to think we're alone, But in all this, I don't know if any of you noticed, but in all this pandemic news, blah, 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 what they did is released a video of 2 Air Force guys watching a UFO maneuvering how nothing we had could maneuver and discussing it. And it just kind of went into the news and went out of the news.
Yep.
It's just, it was just a little blip.
That's so significant in terms of these masculine warriors encountering something from the unknown, and then that just sort of seeding into the collective unconscious randomly.
So Nada and Denise, you had your hand up?
So the UFO thing triggered in me, everybody around me is so intrigued by the alien life, and in my mind, we have alien life all around us in the sense of animals that have culture and everything, that we just don't see them that way. We see them as we don't there's so much more depth there than what we see. We're oblivious to all the lives and the different species around us that have their own way of teaching and culture and language, and we just, many as a society, feel like they're just dumb and just food.
I agree, and I think we're going to have to redefine how we view sentient life on the planet. Me, I'm a vegan.
Yeah, great. Okay, so Denise, thank you again for being patient.
Sure, sure. This is on a totally different angle. And I'm only saying this, I think it's absolutely fascinating. At a certain level, we've been talking about the collapse of the tower and the patriarchy. And I think it's fascinating that the person that happened to be elected in our last election doesn't embody any of the feminine. And that if anybody is an enormous representation of the phallus and the fallacy of the phallus, it's the person who is at the head of the helm right now when everything is collapsing. And at a certain level, am not a fan by any means, but at a certain level, it's perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's. I guess we'll close on that note.
I just wanted to shout out to the other guys in the conversation. I know they weren't very vocal today, but I just want to say, hey, thanks for showing up and representing. Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, let's just all say thank you all very, very much. It was a great, rich discussion. Thank you. And we actually had a few people that had to leave because I think they probably had other things scheduled. But as I said, I will follow up with the names and titles. I mean, the authors and titles of all the books, and the blog post that Catherine put on the Facebook event, and some more information. So and the link to the video. So anyway, thank you all very, very much. And
thank you, Billie. Thank you, Patti.
We'll keep.
Thank you.
There'll be another discussion soon, and we don't know yet when or what it's going to be about, but stay tuned. All right. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks again.